Hi there, Megan Thompson here with Megan Thompson Coaching. Excited to talk to you today about homework. What? It is that time of year when the homework hustle starts to, grind to a halt, if you will. If you're struggling at this point, it's April. Everybody is wondering when school is going to end. Spring's starting to show its beautiful face, and your child might want to go play outside or might be working on engaging with different sports. And it can be really tricky as a parent, right? If you are trying to help them get their homework and you're dealing with a lot of homework meltdowns. So today we are going to talk all about that. Here at MTC, we help parents of highly sensitive kids eliminate the daily meltdown cycle in as little as 8 weeks. We've helped hundreds of families at this point through this avenue, through this business. And prior to that was helping thousands of families in my private practice, in my mental health career as a therapist. So we now work internationally with our clients who are parents, right? Breaking out of this pattern of this meltdown cycle. And we've been doing that for many, many years as well. So let's talk about the challenges that you might be facing in dealing with this problem, right? So your child is coming home telling you maybe they don't have any homework. Maybe your child is telling you they did it at school, and you find out through double checking, right? Through their folder that there's still assignments that need to be done. Or your child is bringing it to you. Perhaps they're perfectionist and highly sensitive. And this is rearing its ugly head because they haven't been able to figure out how to reel in their perfectionism. And this is leading to a lot of challenges. I know I have homework to do. I don't want to do it, or it's really hard to do. And then meltdown ensues, right? A lot of tug of war can be happening in the home on the day-to-day basis if your child is stuck in the meltdown cycle when it comes to homework. Right. So I want to talk about this. When you're a parent, you have two things that you need to balance. One is making sure that your child is learning, right? Helping them follow through on any learning assignments that is assigned by the school. And two, keeping peace in your house so that your child feels emotionally supported. And when those two things rear their ugly heads and you see skill gaps in both of those avenues, it can be quite frustrating and challenging to figure out which priority to prioritize, right? Because obviously if you're raising a highly sensitive child and you're listening to what I have to say, we're talking about emotional skill gaps a lot, right? And it's important to understand that your child still exists in the world. There's still expectations to uphold. And it's still a process to advocate in the school setting, to support your child and help them advocate for themselves without selling themselves short. Right? So many parents we hear can really struggle with this balancing act of trying to get your child to do the homework, to not have a meltdown when it comes down to homework time, to not escape, to not avoid, to not refuse, right? And discover, navigate when your child is having emotional needs that are getting in the way of them and their academic learning, right? Because if that's going on, then it can be really difficult to figure out what is the chicken or the egg situation, right? You might have a situation where your child is struggling academically, and this is leading to them having meltdowns, or you might have a situation where your child is emotionally struggling, and this is leading to them not learning properly. So let's pick it apart from a highly sensitive personality trait standpoint, right? Let's look at it from this angle of noticing that highly sensitive kids, if they do not have emotion regulation skills, then they won't learn even if they do have a learning disability. Okay, so this is really important to understand when you're trying to figure out what problem do I solve first, right? My child is perhaps behind in reading skills or math skills, or doesn't seem to understand the concepts of chemistry. And let's make sure that we're clear here. Let me back up a tiny bit. I almost said scotch, guys. Let me back up a scotch. It's not in my language usually, but it came through my head. So sorry, squirrel. Let's observe, right? If your child is struggling, and this is relevant, highly sensitive children who are stuck in the meltdown cycle, this is relevant for you if your child is 4, if your child is 6, if your child is 9, if your child is 14, okay? All the way up to 16, 17, 18. We work with parents of highly sensitive children ages 2 through 18, all right? So I want to make sure that this is clear. If your child is struggling, I'm saying the word child. That does not mean that I am discounting tweens. It does not mean that I am discounting teens in this conversation, but for the sake of brevity, I'm going to use the word kid because they're your kid, whether they're 15, 26, 32, they're always going to be your child, right? So that's what I'm talking about here. All right. So this, we use one word to capture it all, but, and I talk to my parents about this all the time. And when I say my parents, not my parents like my mother and father, my clients who are parents all the time, that it's really important to understand that your child is at a chronological age of, say, 7, 8, 9, but their emotional age is delayed. There's a real significant issue here. There's a huge skill gap. If your kid is having meltdowns at the age of 9, then they are emotionally behaving like a 4-year-old, right? There's a huge skill gap. That's 5 years. You got to catch up, right? Great news. It's not going to take you 5 years to solve if you follow what we do or even work with us, right? So this is really important. Okay. So let's capture it. Your child's emotional age is much younger than their chronological age. And this is true related to homework. Okay, so when we look at homework and your child is saying, I can't, I won't, no way, no, can't, I don't know how, right? Intellectually, they might know how. They might be gifted even. We have a lot of highly sensitive kids who are gifted or who present at an academically advanced age, right? At an academically advanced capacity given their age. That has nothing to do with whether or not your child can emotionally tolerate tasks. And this is why we always look at any situation, whether it be learning challenges, learning disability, learning application, academic application. So we always look at it from the lens of emotional needs, temperament type first, and skill gap from that lens. Then your child is going to be much more capable of tolerating approaches that help them with say, for example, speech or learning disabilities like dyslexia, dyspraxia, etc. Okay. I want to really help you understand this because it's critical. If your child is not emotionally present to the conversation, they are checking out, they are shutting down, they are screaming, they are throwing things. There's no way, no chance in heck that they will be able to take in what you're saying and spit it back out when it's necessary, right? The gears aren't turning in the way that you need them to turn in that moment, and it's making it very hard for them to learn. So when your child is overwhelmed, highly sensitive child, overwhelmed by all of the thoughts in their mind, all of the feelings that they don't know how to organize, and this process overloads their everyday experience, then when push comes to shove and their responsibilities come into play, they freak out, okay? It just becomes too much. I like to call this the case of too many muches, all right? It's just all coming to a head. And this is the straw that breaks the camel's back principle, right? So you know this. Whenever, you have a rough day, it's not because the one thing that bothered you, that you freaked out about, is what bothered you, right? It's because everything else that day went poorly or whatever, not as you expected, and then all of a sudden, straw broke the camel's back. You freaked out, right? You're stressed. So when you look at this from this angle, if your child has a stress management problem, what do? You can't decrease stress. This is regular, everyday stuff for your child, right? I'm not talking to you because you've got your kid in 16 programs, right? And your kid is going to, and they're overscheduled, that is, to the nth degree. It's not like you got your kid going to soccer on Tuesday and gymnastics on Wednesday and, fencing on Thursday and Girl Scouts on Friday and, 3 different activities on the weekends when those sports have competitions. And then you're saying, why are you freaking out and invalidating your kid at that point, right? I'm talking about regular, run-of-the-mill, typical family situation where you've got more than one kid in the house, maybe, right? You got to go to work, they got to go to school, and they got a couple of extracurriculars per season, maybe just one extracurricular per season. Or you're homeschooling, right? Kids got all day. I'm a homeschooler, so I'm not saying that that's anything wrong. Kids got all day to get the assignment done. You can even push it back to tomorrow and figure it out, right? There's plenty of time. It's not the time. It's not the schedule that is leading to the problem. It's an emotional management problem. It's a skill gap here. Great news. Much easier to fix, right? Than trying to pull strings outside of yourself and in the community to turn this around when you notice that this can actually be handled in their heart, in their mind, in their soul. And guess what? Who helps a child manage their heart, their mind, their soul? Parents. Parents do. Okay, so this is you. This is up to you to solve, right? That's great news if you stay out of shame and blame yourself, right? This is why I talk about mindset work and all the stuff that we help our clients focus on. It's huge. It's super necessary so you don't blame yourself. This is not a blaming conversation. This is a wonderful. You can only control what you can control. And you get to control how you raise your child. Fantastic. Let's do it. So let's talk about homework, okay? A couple things that you need to do to solve this problem. If your child is struggling, you need to, number 1, bust the myth that it's because the homework is too much or that it's because your child literally can't handle it, right? Because you won't be able to get to the bottom of that from an intellectual standpoint if you're wondering whether or not your child intellectually understands the work. If your child is emotionally not present, okay? Number 1. Number 2, you need to tailor the understanding, right, of your child's homework in a way that they're actually going to learn. So you need to be able to emotionally talk to your child in a playful manner. Play is the child's language. So you have to be playful. We've had so many clients who just start to sit down with their kid and get the pen out and you're recreating the boring part of school at home. And that isn't going to work either. Number 3, you need to be able to make this not just playful, but make the process engaging, right? That the whole concept of getting the homework done has to be supportive, right? You have to be able to learn to validate your kids' emotions so that they understand, yes, this is hard and I can figure out how to do it, rather than saying, yes, this is hard and I can't do it because it's hard, right? Homework struggles for a highly sensitive child who's stuck in the meltdown cycle is a concept of self problem. I don't know how to handle hard problems and therefore I can't do it. That's a capability problem, not an academic problem, not a responsibility problem either. So it's really important for you to understand that. Okay, that's myth busting moment number 4. Number 5 is task management. Okay, of course you have to help your kid pay attention to making the problem smaller and staying on task, focusing and being able to do that. What helps highly sensitive kids who are overwhelmed stay focused? Emotion regulation, right? If you're calm, cool, collected, then you're going to be able to be more productive, right? Let's be honest. So, what's important for you as a parent to be paying attention to? You need to make sure that you're not trying to ride your kid hard on responsibilities and lecture them. Why? It makes them feel crappy. If you make them feel crappy, they feel more shame. They're not emotionally available for getting their homework done. Okay? Secondly, makes you feel crappy because you just expect your kid to do it and you're not able to notice where their gaps are for learning, where their gaps are for skill development. So that's really, really important as well. You need to be able to come at this from an angle of empowerment. Take our clients, Michelle, let's make sure that we're clear here. We have clients who are working with us right now. They haven't even finished their work in boot camp. This is the program that they're in. Their child is a preteen and struggling in the school system, and they had no idea what would be appropriate for where their child is struggling. The child already has supports in place, and the school is saying, you know what, the supports aren't fitting it. We need to move the kid into a different classroom, different, separate, private classroom. We have a highly sensitive child on our hands here, guys. Isolating them and adding to their own picture that they can't handle it is not going to work, right? So we had to move upstream and support the family in noticing how to advocate for the school, how to help the school notice the supports they have in place aren't actually moving the needle, and they're actually going against what the sensitive child needs, what the highly sensitive child needs, so that he stops showing up with the sensitivity as a weakness. Woe is me, I'm different, everything is a hairpin trigger, right? That's not sensitivity, that's not a personality. That's smallness, right? That's a place of disempowerment. That's helplessness. That's powerlessness. That is not part of the personality trait, guys. That is a symptom of the meltdown cycle. And so we help the parents understand that. But also, you could see here through the image I'm sharing here on this show, this parent celebration recently. I'll take a minute. Okay, so if you're watching, if you're listening to this show instead of just watching it, we'll have a link to go see the image. I'm sure we'll post it somewhere on our Facebook page. Okay, so you can go to read it for yourself. Right, read the family's story for yourself and what they were able to accomplish. What they're able to accomplish is they stood up for their son. Their son was being pulled out in different ways from the classroom. That didn't work, right? They heard me in that respect. And they advocated in a way that helped the school understand the personality trait, what is going to work. And guess what? The school got on board. They said, you know what? Your kid doesn't need more isolation. They need different support that's going to be much more efficient and effective than singling the kid out and saying that he can't do it. Kid made it 10 years and followed through on the education system and now is struggling. Well, let's wonder why, right? Let's not just say that the child needs more support from the school setting, because that might actually move the needle. We have had clients where the child needs more support. Absolutely, we teach either end of the process here because that's necessary. We've had clients come in, kid needs a 504 or an IEP. We get that rocking, and now the school can actually tackle the problem. But guess what? If the school's prohibiting those kinds of services because they don't understand and they're thinking the child is willful and that it's a kid mood problem or a kid motivation problem, then you've got another problem on your hands, right? So you need to be able to advocate either way. So your kid's not pigeonholed, and so that your kid isn't set up for failure because nobody's supporting them, right? So that's the story today of this one family, and stay tuned, right? Because obviously the story's not over. We haven't even finished working with them to support them. And again, this is a kiddo who was shut down, just really struggling significantly emotionally, not telling mom or dad what's going on, nothing, blah, blah, blah. Given the 10-year-old story of I got this or don't bother me, shut down. And now the family's playing, they're talking about emotions, they're communicating, they feel connected to their son. And these are two parents where this is not in their wheelhouse. They're not our typical client where one parent is a professional in the field, doctor, nurse, therapist, etc., right? Teacher. Both of them work in more IT type, computer science type fields. Okay, so this was totally out of their wheelhouse. Engineering. I don't want to get too specific on their specialty because I want to protect their privacy here, but it's that kind of field, right? Totally out of their wheelhouse. This is not what they do for a living. It's not even really where they feel comfortable, right? But they were able to turn this around and advocate as an equal, if not greater, playing field member of the team in school too, and got their kids' needs met in the way that he's going to actually be receptive, right? So super, super important, super, super necessary for you. When we look at homework battles, it's not about the homework. Honestly, it's not about the homework. It's about the fact that your kid doesn't feel capable, and you need to be in charge of helping your child do that, right? And it can't be just from telling them, feel more capable. It's going to be fine, right? They need a skill that you need to teach. Okay, 4 ways to teach that skill. 1, learn validation. We talk about this a lot, right? There's so many levels to validation. Telling them that other people have the same problem or that you've experienced it too, that's not the best way to validate. So it's really important that you learn this and understand it and study it. Secondly, you have to make feelings fun. You have to play. You have to support your child in being A-okay with their emotions, and you need to understand where you're in the way of that process. If that feels difficult or tricky for you or totally out of your wheelhouse, then professional support could very well be the most important angle there, just to make it faster, right? Thirdly, you have to give your child the opportunity to change without using shame as a driver. Okay, shame does not drive. Shame keeps you stuck. Shame keeps you helpless. Shame, when you hear, I got to change something, and in your mind that makes you think that you're a piece of crap if you don't change it right away, that's your own shame story. That's your mindset talking, all right? It's got nothing to do with who's telling you you need to change. It's got everything to do with how you experience motivation. And if emotionally you listen to your shame voice often, then that's work that you need to do, because you can't teach your child something that you don't know how to do, right? So you gotta learn that process too, okay? And then you need to be doing this systematically. You need to be able to do this in a paced way so that your kid isn't hearing, you got to fix all the things, kid. There's all these things in your life that aren't going well and you need to fix it. So you need to help your child learn how to practice more effective behavior in a way that actually supports them and not thinking that everything's broken, okay? The best way to do that, honestly, the fastest way to do that is to have a conversation with our team and figure out if we can help you, okay? How do you do that? meganthompsoncoaching.com/talk or meganthompsoncoaching.com/teen talk. If your child is of high school age or older, then we have the conversation with your teen and you so that they can take ownership of what they need to in a developmentally appropriate level. If your child is under the age of 14 or 14 and still in 8th grade, then you are the catalyst for their change. It's important to notice that. So we only talk with parents at that point, okay? All right, that conversation's free, all right? And you get to decide with us if you're ready to change that problem right away. You can hear from us, tell us where you're stuck, tell us where you want to go, what your goals are, and if we can help you, we'll talk about exactly how that works, and you can get started on that very same phone call. And we're happy to support you in that, all right? If not, if we feel like something's more efficient or effective to get the point across for you to meet your family's needs, or perhaps your child's having homework meltdowns because of a different problem, then go ahead and book the call anyways. We're going to help you notice what more effective support would be relevant at that in that case. Okay, we're happy to help you with that. All right,